Hey, welcome back to Percussion Methods. Today, we are changing and tuning a snare head. You're gonna need a few things. Obviously, a new drum head, standard tuning key, a stick, a few rags, some white lithium grease, and a permanent marker. See that this old head has a fair amount of wear and some scratches on it. Someone's put some tape on it. So it's really time for this one to get changed out. It's sounding dull and not bright and tight like we like a snare head to sound. You should replace any heads that have damage like dents or scratches if they're showing excessive wear or if people have defaced them by writing on them or putting lots of tape on them or painting them or whatever. Drum set heads can be replaced at least once a year, maybe more frequently depending on how often you're playing on it. You should also replace any head that is losing its ability to keep pitch or needs a lot of retuning in order to keep it clear or at the pitch that you want it at. The first step is to remove the old head. Set the drum down on a nice soft-topped table like this one and orient the snare drum so that you have one of the lugs or tension rods facing toward you. Take your tuning key, we're gonna give that a 180-degree turn, so one turn to loosen it. We don't want to relieve all the tension just on one side of the drum. It's not great for the rim, it's not great for the shell. So we're going to go across the drum to the other side, loosen that a turn. From our original position, move one to your left, loosen that, then go across. I like to leave my hand in the position of the first one I loosened in the sequence, then go around to your left one more time for the next pair. Loosen that, then keep going. Now we've taken off a lot of the tension initially. We're gonna repeat the process one more turn, starting with the tension rod closest, then across, then move over to the next pair. We've removed a lot of the tension from this old head, so now at this point we can just go in a line, removing and loosening all the tension rods completely. Now I'm going to use my fingers to get all the tension rods out of their casing so that the rim and the head can be removed. You might notice that your fingers get a little bit greasy as you're working with these tension rods. It's nice to have a little rag on hand to get rid of some of that finger grease. Okay, now that we've fully loosened this rim, we can lift it off and set it someplace where it won't get dirty and the tension rods won't fall off. In this case, I'm just gonna set it on two music stands. You can remove the old head at this point and throw it in the trash or turn it into the world's worst Frisbee. Check the interior of the shell for any damage and any bolts that might be loose and rattling in here. It's also a good idea to take a rag and wipe out the inside if you've got little chips of wood or tape or whatever might be in there. To keep the tension rods moving smoothly as you tighten or loosen them, it's a good idea to make sure the tension rod casings have a little bit of lubricant in them. I like using white lithium grease. It tends to work really, really well, and it's easy to put it into the tension rod casing. This one has a little bit of lubrication, but could use a bit more. Just open up the tube, drop just a little bit in, and leave it at the top of the casing. Now that you've removed the old head and you've checked that all the tension rod casings are lubricated, you can now put the new head on. Today we're putting on a Remo Ambassador coated head. I really like these because the coating works well with brushes. They're really pretty tough heads and they sound nice and bright as well. The location of the stamp radially doesn't really matter. You can put it wherever you wish. I like to put it over where near the snare strainer is, so that it's always easy to locate if you need to turn it on or off quickly. Throughout the tuning process, you want to do your best to make sure that the head is centered on top of the shell. It is possible to have it drift a little bit from side to side. It might have some play around the bottom side of the head. Do your best to keep it centered. One way you can keep it centered is to give a little bit of pressure in the middle of the head. You can also run your fingers along the outside and see how much play you have side to side or front to back. Take your rim with the tension rods on it and carefully seat it around your new head. Try not to have the bottoms of the tension rods touch the head because it might be a little bit greasy. And from here, you can just use your fingers to get the tension rods seated and threaded in the casings. Now that you've begun threading all of your tension rods into the casings, I like to take two of them that are on opposite sides of the drum and move them side to side to see if the rim is twisted radially or if it's centered above all the tension rods, and that helps keep it aligned. At this point, you can go ahead and finger tighten all of the tension rods. I like to finger tighten them until the bottom of the tension rod is touching the top of the rim. So right there. And right there. It's a nice idea to give a little bit of gentle pressure in the center of the head, just to make sure it's evenly seated and centered. Next, it's time to start tightening. We're gonna do this in the same order that we loosened the tension rods. So starting with the one closest to you, and then going across the drum, and then moving clockwise to the next pair. And this will ensure that just one side of the head doesn't have all of the tension on it, which can be not good for the drum, not good for the rim, and not good for the life of the head and getting it clear, which is in tune with itself. So we're gonna start with the tension rod closest to us. I'm gonna give it 2 full 180-degree turns and go across to do the same thing. And then I'm gonna move and find the next pair. You might find that these are a little bit looser because of what's been pulled down around it. Again, 2 turns. The next pair, 2 turns. As you're working on the head, you might hear a little bit of cracking. That's actually normal as the head starts to have tension put on it, so don't worry about it. I'm gonna give a little more gentle pressure in the center of the head. Oh, there we go. To make sure that it's properly seated. Then we're gonna keep going, starting in the same location. I'm gonna give it 1 or 2 more turns, and then go across, and move clockwise. At this point, the head is starting to have a little bit more pitch to it, so I'm gonna start checking the individual tension rods to see if any are too low. I like to do this process using a stick, tapping close to the tension rods. And I'm gonna start at the one that's closest to me. Then go around. That one sounds significantly lower, so I'm gonna bring that up a turn. That one also sounds low. One's a little low. Little low. Little low. I'm going to keep going around and around the drum, checking to see which ones are too low and continuing to bring them up until they're fairly uniform. I've done an initial round of clearing the head, checking to see which tension rods are lower compared to the other ones and bringing them up, but I still want this batter head to be higher in pitch. So I'm gonna go around giving a full turn in the same sequence, starting with the tension rod closest to me, then going across, and then the pairs in a clockwise motion. Now that I've brought the entire head up in pitch, I'm gonna do another round of clearing with a stick. I'm going to keep bringing up the pitch of the head and clearing until I get a really nice, bright, articulate sound from the batter head. I also like to compare the pitch of the batter head versus the snare side or the resonant head. And I'll do that by tapping with my fingers near the rim of the drum. I'm muting the other head so I don't hear it resonate. I'm gonna notice the pitch, then compare it on the other side. This is with the snares off, of course. I'm noticing that this resonant or the snare side head is quite a bit higher than the other one, which will help give us a really nice bright sound. Here's where we're at with this. It's loud loud, it's articulate, it's really bright, it feels springy in the hand. The last step of the tuning process is to take a permanent marker and write the month and year that you put the new head on. This will help you gauge how old your heads are and help you make a judgment as to whether or not to replace them. So it's June 2023, so I just wrote 6/23 right above the stamp on the head. At this point, we've got our new head on. It's tuned up. It's sounding really, really nice. It is common for some heads to sound a little bit stuffy at first before they stretch out. And you also might need to bring the tension up as it stretches over the first few days that you're playing it. You can replace and clear the resonant or the snare side head in essentially the same way as you did with the batter head if it's damaged or if it's been stretched and not holding pitch. This one's in okay shape, so I'm gonna leave it on for now. The tightness of the snares on the bottom of the drum will also influence its tone. If you have them very tight, you might get a lot of great articulation at a very loud level, but you'll lose sensitivity at softer dynamics. Vice versa, if you have them really, really loose, they might rattle around excessively, or you might not get the articulation or punch you want at a louder dynamic. I like to be able to strum the snares without them rattling or sagging beneath the resonant head, but be able to strum them really, really easily. If I have them too loose in play, it sounds kind of like this. Not great, they're rattling around a lot. If I over tighten them, really articulate at a loud level, but it gets very stuffy at a soft level. And the snares are actually buzzing with their own pitch at this point. So something in between is ideal. For a drum set snare batter head, I like something like this Remo coated Ambassador. It's a 10 mil thick head, which is 10/1000ths of an inch thick, which is a medium thickness head. The coating is really, really nice and pronounced, which works great for brushes. And it has a nice blend of the sensitivity of a thin head and the durability and volume of a thick head. You can certainly go with something thinner, say like with a coated Diplomat. That'll give you a little bit more of a sensitive sound, which could work great in, say, a jazz combo. You can do something even thicker, like a coated Emperor, which will give you a little bit of a darker sound. It'll be really, really, really durable, but might not have some of the sensitivity at lower dynamics you're looking for. I always like to use coated heads on all of my drum set batter heads, simply because it gives you many options to use brushes, and it also gives you a really nice, bright, and articulate sound across the drums.